Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void by Tim Leban. This book is technically the first novel within the Star Wars Legends continuity and timeline. It dates back to about 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, or before the New Hope, and it predates the Old Republic era, and predates the original Jedi Order. This is technically a story that involves the original Jedi Order, which is an order that predates both the Jedi and the Sith Order before the great split that occurred some thousands of years later. I believe it was around 7,000 years before New Hope, and which involved a civil war between those who were wanting to follow the dark side and those who were willing to follow the light side more. But this book predates all that, predates the fallen Jedi, which would later become the Sith, predates the Jedi thousands of years, and predates the original Jedi order, or the prequel Jedi order during that time period, and the original trilogy about 25,000 years. This is a time period in which the Jedi had what is known as steel swords, which they're able to block blaster bolts, but they didn't have lightsabers. So this predates lightsabers, in which the Jedi Order originally had steel swords. This book talks about a Jedi Ranger. Her name, which she's on the front cover, her name is Lenore Brock. She's a Jedi Ranger during this time period. She is about somewhere between her mid to late 20s. And there's also a mini story which technically predates the main story. The mini story actually takes place at the end of this book, so which talks about more of her life and her story, and predates the main story of this book. But what this book is about her being a Jedi Ranger, but she is tasked by her masters to track down an evil cult leader who turns out to be her brother, in which she thought was dead. She thought he died as a child long ago on some runaway mission, in which he ran away from the Jedi, from his home, and she thought that he was lost forever, and thought that he was killed by rabid creatures, only to find out over a decade later that he's still alive. And now he's a cult leader, wanting to track down an ancient Gree technology that is able to um, let's just say, destroy the entire star system, the entire system of Typhon. The Coruscant is not mentioned in this book. The Jedi have not established their capital on Coruscant yet. The presence on Coruscant, so they they live on the world of Typhon, which has two moons, one in which they see as a representative of the dark side, and the other is represent is seen as represented as the light side. During this time period, the Jedi Order tried to bring more harmony and balance into everything. They tried to stray from the dark side and try not to linger too much on the light side. They try, in their philosophical theology, they try to remain in balance between the two. And from what I know, they're able to marry too. They're able to enter into marriages, so that's definitely different from the prequel era Jedi Order, which would start thousands, which would begin thousands of years later from this time period. Sometime around 4000 BBY, but that takes place within the Tales of the Jedi novels. Um, this book takes place some 25,000 years 25 some 20,000 years before that, so the Jedi have not established that rule that you're not supposed to have attachments among your families, nor married. This takes place thousands of years before that, in which they still are allowed to have some form of attachments with the families. They are still allowed to have attachments with the families, along with allowing to marry. No, this book is, it gives no indication on whether or not she does marry. Within the story, she doesn't marry, and I'm not sure if there was supposed to be any sequel to it, and since it's written in 2013, and so this is around the same time period in which Disney took control of Lucas film. They allowed them to finish whatever books they were working on, and then they disbanded everything and considered them as legends. So this was at the toll, or the close of that agreement, one of the last books to be written within the Legends continuity, and I think it's well written. I believe it's I actually enjoyed it. I haven't gotten into any of the more A-listed books yet, such as the Bane Trilogy or Plagueis or the Turan Trilogy, so I'm not sure how this book is compared to those, but I actually really enjoyed it. I liked it. She has a unique personality. I'll say that. But she is wanting to see her brother again, after learning that the cult leader is her lost dead brother, and she wants to redeem him. She wants to do everything she can to redeem her, and I love that about her, because they're family. She wants to redeem him as much as possible, but in the inverse side of things, he's trying to do whatever he can to pretty much kill her. get her out of his life and follow through with his plan on trying to find the ancient Greek technology so that he could find his previous homeworld, the homeworld of his ancestors, because it was not Typhon. A whole bunch of Force users, including their ancestors, were brought to Typhon thousands of years or centuries before that, from what is known as the Torrior. You can actually see one of the Torrior ships in the background of her. The Torrior is an unknown technology, which is mentioned and explained more in the Dawn of the Jedi comics and graphic novel. It's an unknown ancient technology in which it attracted a whole bunch of Force users from various different star systems and planets, and then the Dorior lifted off and sent them all to Typhon, the homeworld of the Jedi movement, the homeworld of the Jedi. So a lot of these Force users' ancestors are not native to Typhon. They originated, or the Jedi Order originated from Typhon when they all came together and formed a Force user a group in which they refer to themselves as the Jedi movement, but various species within this order were from different various planets, including that of Lenore Brock and her ancestors, her and her brother and their ancestors, and he has a huge grudge, a huge envy, I should say, not just grudge, but hatred and envy towards the Jedi, because one, he's not Force sensitive, and he envies that from the Jedi, and two, they put a lot of pressure onto him, in which if he doesn't fulfill many of the missions or the tasks that helps you build more and adapt more to become more of a Jedi member, then they would eventually shun you and kick them out of the order and whatnot. He has no interest within the Jedi. There's a couple instances in which he actually gets to a point in which he's like, okay, I actually like this more so on the martial arts side of things, the militaristic tactical training. He liked that. He loved the training, the martial arts training behind all of that, the Jedi, but he was pressured in the book. He was pressured and whatnot, and in his mind when it came to certain training and whatnot, when it came to using the Force, when it came to missions and training, and when it involved the Force, he didn't like that, and to him it pushed him to a breaking point in which he's like, I'm just going to fake my death and leave the Jedi Order completely, resent my family even because they are Force sensitive, resent his own sister. Sorry, I was speaking in third person there, trying to make it as though it was me, but no, her brother resented the order the Jedi Order completely resented his own family and even resented his own sister to the point in which he faked his own death and left. And then he went to the extreme side and became a cult leader and created a cult in which they're trying to find the ancient Greek technology so that he could try to find his homeworld. And the Jedi are worried about this because they heard about the technology and how mysterious it could be, but also how deadly it could be because of its ancient use of its ancient usage. That if used incorrectly, it could cause catastrophic danger. But and that's where the Jedi eventually order sets Lenore Brock on a mission to track him down, and she eventually realizes that it's her brother and finds that out that he's still alive after he faked his death, and she wants to bring him back to the light, bring him to sense, bring him back to her and her family, and perhaps have some form of what's the word? Have some form of role within the Jedi movement, but she eventually realizes that he has no interest in the Jedi, but she still wants to bring him back to her and her family because he's her brother. Excuse me. And she loves him, but then at least 2 times, yeah, 2 or 3 times, he tries to kill her, tries to destroy an entire city to kill her. At least one other time too, and then he also shoots her too, which leaves a fatal wound in, that she has to use her Jedi, the Force powers to heal herself. So yeah, it got to a point in which she realizes that it's probably too late for him, and he finds the technology, he activates it, and she eventually, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say that things didn't work out, and most and she returns to Typhon, the Jedi. She return or Jedi, sorry, Jedi. She returns to the Jedi and Typhon. She she reunites with the rest of her family, her father and mother, and it essentially ends with that. But I don't want to spoil too much, or especially the ending. I don't want to spoil the ending because I think the ending is really good, and it was really really interesting. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension within this book, and yeah, it's quite interesting, and it was cool to to read something that predates um, lightsabers and Jedi and Sith, the origins of the Jedi and Sith movement, or it predates the origins of the Jedi and the Sith. That which doesn't come till much later. The idea of trying to balance the Force, or um, keep your emotions in balance and not stray too far from to the light or the dark side aspects of the Force. It is really unique, and I quite like it. Of course, um, when it comes to Revan's theology on the Force, I like his theology much more better, and it seems to resonate from what I heard um, more with Luke Skywalker's ideals and theology um, thousands of years later. So it's it predates everything, and you start to see the the origins on why or where the Sith and the Jedi get to the point in which one embraces the light side more and the other embraces the dark side more. And um, I love history. I love ancient history. So learning about the ancient Sith and Jedi and the ancient history of the Star Wars itself, it's fascinating. That's why I love the old Republic era. It has such fascinating stories, and now when it comes to the book, the story itself, um, is it something that you want to keep within the Legends timeline, Legends continuity? It takes place 25,000 years in the past, before the Battle of Yavin, or before The New Hope, or the original trilogy. So it it's 25,000 years before all of that, and the talks about the original Jedi order and their beliefs and their theology, um, and it hints at why the order eventually split in two, or at least it hints at that in the comics later on in the comics and the the graphic novel. Hey there, my cat, or one of our cats. She wants to say hello. Um, at the end of it, it leads into the Dawn of the Jedi comics, where it talks about this prisoner of Bogan, one of the moons, prisoner of Bogan, who was sent there because he was straying too far to the dark side, and also some as well as some type of event that took place before this story did. They mentioned some of it, but it gets into more detail in the comics. Some type of vision that occurs, and he has his own ways of dealing with it, and that eventually leads them to imprison him on the moon of Bogan, and one of the two moons of Typhon. There's two moons of Typhon, Ashla and Bogan. One represents the light side, and one represents the dark side within the Judeo theology, and yeah, it's all quite interesting. So yeah, since this predates the original trilogy, 25,000 years, and there's very little contradiction. So there's no, from what I could tell. So it's its own story. It's its own story, and because it takes place 25,000 years before the movies or before the original trilogy, I would say yes. You can include this within your Legends timeline, Legends continuity. I'm doing it. There's nothing wrong with including it. The story is epic. It's a wonderful story, and the comics or graphic novel that follows after it, they're those stories are epic too. Talking about the Yuuzhan Vong, no, not the Yuuzhan Vong. Sorry, not Yuuzhan Vong. That's later down in history. It's talking about the Rakhodan Empire and their cannibalistic nature with the Force, and I'll get into that later on in some future video where I get better at the editing, where I'm able to learn more on the editing of the video. So I'll I'll get into that later. But for now, for starters, this is Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void, written by Tim Lebbon. Excellent book. Totally recommend it for those who want to learn about the Dawn of the Jedi era. And yeah, with that, I'm going to say goodbye and hope you all have a good day.